They're committing the crimes. And second, I can tell you, I never ever represented a foreign national. The search warrant is purportedly based on one single failure to file for representing a Ukrainian national or official that I never represented.
So he chose to appear on a show that Fox itself has argued is not to be taken seriously, and yet he made very serious allegations. He said that the warrant was illegal, that his electronics will exculpate him and Trump, that the Department of Justice spied on him, and that this is about the Bidens and politics. And as you just heard, he never represented any foreign entity or agent or any of the interests in violation of the law. There is a reason that attorneys for time immemorial have not wanted people to discuss a case, because not only will those words echo into the ears of people who are now being challenged to prove they know what they're doing, but there are implications about why it's being done, though it started under the Trump administration, and what they can prove. These are not inactive enemies. Warrants like this, here's what we know. They are obtained usually deep into a case. Why? Because prosecutors have to be able to convince a judge that they know things and that they are likely to find proof of a crime if they get what they want pursuant to the warrant. Now, as we saw with other Trumpers, like Manafort and Cohen, charges were not far behind this kind of move. Now, the question becomes, charges about what? The New York Times reports tonight that at least one of the warrants was seeking evidence related to the ousting of Marie Yovanovitch from her role as ambassador to Ukraine. You'll remember how impressive she was when she was discussed during the impeachment hearings and what she was about in her job, what she liked, what she didn't like. Trump removed her from her post. Why? The speculation was, from Giuliani and others, that she had stood in the way of his shakedown efforts to smear Biden. And that is what this may all be about. What Giuliani, perhaps with the knowledge and participation of Trump and others, did for Ukraine and its agents to get information and assistance on the Bidens, real or fake. We also know that Giuliani did not hide these efforts. He openly went to Ukraine as the president's lawyer, or so he said. You'll see why I qualify that in a moment. He said he was going to get information, including information from a man that U.S. intelligence says is an active Russian agent, a man known as Andrei Derkach. And we know that Giuliani was completely aware of what U.S. intel thought of this guy, and that Trump was as well, and that Trump administration intel services wanted him to know that what this man was telling him and what he was repeating about the Bidens was known to be propaganda that Russia wanted out there. And we know that he knew all of this because we confronted Giuliani about it here. But why would you even meet with this guy?
Nothing to do with Derkach. It has to do with direct witnesses. I interviewed him because he had additional information. What he gave me was a document from the Ukrainian government going back to January of 2017 saying that $5.3 billion in foreign aid is unaccounted for.
Yeah, except he is called by our government to be a Russian operative and a propaganda pusher.
Please let me finish.
All right, go ahead.
Two people.
He went on to say, yes, I know, I don't believe them about that. It's a key part of it. So he knew, he didn't believe, he dismissed. But he also says, that the information he was giving, he was well informed that it was coming from Derkach. And he knew the concerns about it, and he did it anyway. Now, what did Trump know about these efforts, and how did he assist, if so? Trump has changed his story. Not surprising. Most recently, Trump said nice things about Giuliani on Fox. But listen to this and then think about what wasn't said. Listen.
Giuliani is a great patriot. He does these things. He just loves this country, and they raid his apartment. It's like so unfair.
He does these things. What things? No detail from Trump. Why? Why nothing specific about what was done or not done with Ukraine and why it's okay? Here's why. Because what Trump knew about, he may have empowered, and that could be a problem. Okay, now we know that Trump for a while denied knowing what Giuliani was doing there. Do you remember that phase? I don't know what he's doing. He went over there. I don't know why he's doing. But eventually, he owned his efforts. Listen.
Was it strange to send Rudy Giuliani to Ukraine, your personal lawyer? Are you sorry you did that?
Not at all. Rudy was a great crime fighter. You know that maybe better than anybody.
Okay, so you knew he was there. You sent him. He was working for you. Fine. The same man who said in his perfect call with Ukraine's president, they got him impeached, that the president should talk to Giuliani about the Bidens. I will ask him to call you. Remember, it seemed like a quid pro quo, and that what led to the second impeachment. Now, could it lead to a crime or knowledge of a crime? Thereafter, Trump went back to saying he didn't know if Rudy was still his lawyer. Literally, those were his words. I don't know if he's still my lawyer. Think about that and what that expresses as a state of mind. Ridiculous, but instructive of Trump's wariness of what he may have known was afoot. So, what do the denials from Giuliani and the relative silence about the substance from Trump mean? Is this just about lobbying? And what does the timing of the warrant suggest about the progress of the case? Questions that demand better minds, and we have them. Norm Eisen and Mary McCord. Good to have you back. Thank you for being with us. Mary, as I said there, lawyers do not want people talking when they're being investigated for exactly what we saw from Rudy Giuliani tonight. What is the mistake in coming out of the box hot the way he did?
Well, people might say things that might incriminate themselves. They might lead investigators to have additional questions about them. They might compromise defenses. I mean, you never really want, as a lawyer, your client to be talking publicly about a case where they are potentially the target of the investigation. So, but Rudy Giuliani speaks when he wants to speak, and obviously we saw that tonight.
Did anything he say fall into the category of may come back to haunt him, Mary?
Well, I actually didn't hear the entire interview. What hit me just as the prosecutor I've been for most of my career, but not anymore, was when he said that the search warrant was illegal because you have to have evidence that someone is trying to destroy evidence in order to get a search warrant, which is, of course, utterly baseless. Search warrants are based on probable cause to believe that evidence of a crime may be found on the items that you seek to search. It has nothing to do with whether you're trying to destroy evidence. So I was a little bit befuddled at that comment coming from someone who had been a prosecutor and thought he was really just trying to impact the public and make them think that from the get-go that this was an illegal investigation.
The timing, Norm. What does going to the search warrant suggest about where prosecutors are in their process?
Chris, thanks for having me back on. A pleasure to be with you with my friend Mary. What the timing suggests is that the waterfall of events is really cascading. We've seen this once before with the investigation of Michael Cohen. These warrants are typically executed well along in an investigation. There was about a 4-month gap between the Cohen raid and the denouement, the charges against Cohen. So I think it's certainly more than days away, but it's not years away. And I think it signals a high likelihood of very serious jeopardy for Mr. Giuliani because of the standards you have to satisfy to get a judge to authorize this kind of warrant.
And look, the atmospherics here aren't good. Mary, that's never been your specific interest. You're about the law, not the politics of it. But he's got his son pleading his case when he obviously doesn't know what he's talking about. He's got Michael Cohen being a tea leaf reader, one of the least credible people you can find. So that's not great for him that's the company he's in at this point. But there's also a suggestion that, well, this is just about registering as an agent. Why do we all assume that's all this could be? Do you believe that it could only be about registering as an agent? Why would the search warrant involve going after Yovanovitch's seat as ambassador?
Well, a prosecutor does have to list a potential crime that they're investigating on a warrant, because they have to say that they have to be able to establish that they have probable cause to believe that crime is or may be being committed, and that evidence of that crime will be found on the item sought to be seized and searched. So, but that doesn't mean you have to list every crime, right? And so it's quite possible there are additional crimes that the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Department of Justice are investigating. It's also possible that they will find things on the materials that were seized, whether from Mr. Giuliani or some of the other electronic devices that were also seized yesterday. They might find evidence that leads them to additional crimes. So I can't tell you whether that's all or not, but I will say I think it's wrong for people to suggest that a violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act is not a significant crime. I know it's something that people don't know a lot about, but the whole point of registering when you are representing a foreign principal, and in this case we're really talking, I think, about a foreign government, is so that not only the public but also the government here, the U.S. government, knows that when you are speaking to them, in this case, presumably we're talking about when Giuliani was advocating for the ouster of the ambassador, that he's this is hypothetically and alleged, that he might be doing that on behalf of a foreign government and not just based on his own views. So it's all about transparency, so that the people who are sought to be influenced, as well as the American public, understands what is behind that effort. So it's not an insignificant crime. And I would also say that there's another crime that has an even a stiffer penalty, which is acting as a foreign agent of a foreign government, which is also a potential here if the evidence pans out. And that is a 10-year offense, and it's nothing to belittle or suggest is not important.
All right, Norm, Mary, I got to leave it there, but thank you very much. As this story continues, I'm going to come back to one and both to kind of understand which way this is going. But I do know this, everybody who's still in that business on the justice side, they say that when you come out and say that they have nothing, that's the biggest mistake you can make when you have a federal investigation against you. Norm, again, Mary, thank you. So